Well, thank you and good afternoon to the Development and Property Committee. Welcome to the committee meeting of February the 8th, 2022. I'll call this meeting to order. So getting a little bit warmer out there. So it's kind of nice out there for snowmobiling and all the rest of the stuff. So with that, as we gather this afternoon, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Who are we? Evelyn, has roll call been taken?
Yes, and we have quorum.
We have a quorum. Thank you for that. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does any member wish to disclose any pecuniary interest on any of the matters that are before us this afternoon? Having seen none, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting of January the 11th, and they're distributed and attached on your packages. Any errors or omissions to those minutes? Seeing none, I need a motion to accept them, please. As Jab and Kathy, all in favor? Then it is carried. No delegations at this point in time. Then we'll go to item number 7, found on page 3, the department report. And that's over to Craig. Craig?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, committee. Yeah, it's a little bit of snow falling today, a little bit of snowmobiling for Mr. Reinwald and myself. So we're anxious to get out of here, I'm sure, but welcome to February. With your indulgence, Chair, we do have a new member of our staff who's very busy, but we thought we'd bring her on at the beginning just to say hi. She was introduced in writing last month. Erica Edmansky is our new supervisor of technical services. Yeah, you can turn your camera on. And Erica's a welcome addition, working through a huge portfolio of housing and some of our property needs here and real estate needs, and working with Kevin. And perhaps with your indulgence, Chair, just ask Erica to say hi and welcome herself to
Sure. Well, Erica, thank you very much. You're in the dark there. I can hardly see you.
I know. I think I need to close my blinds or something.
That's okay. Well, welcome to the team. The floor is yours if you want to introduce yourself and say who you are. And we're excited to have you, as Craig has said, on our team. But the floor is yours to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be here working with the county. I've been a resident of Renfrew County my whole life, and it's really an honor to be able to add some value to the Renfrew County housing portfolio, as well as the real property.
Well, thank you. We look forward to seeing you on many occasions and working with you. Thank you for being part of the team. So,
thank you.
Good to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Okay, with that, Craig, back to you.
Thanks, Chair. And it is with note that we did steal her from the town of Arnprior and Councillor Lynch, of course. We'll buy him a beer at some point. So again, thank you very much. Item number 1, committee, is a piece of information of a letter and an information package that was sent to Honorable Carolyn Mulroney, who, of course, Chair and some staff met with during the Roma conference a couple of weeks ago to discuss opportunities along the Algonquin Trail as we move forward. It was mentioned during the conference that there was some future funding coming along, including Rural Economic Development Funds, which you're going to hear about more later, and a federal fund for active transportation, a $400 million fund from the federal government. And we're looking at an application for that one as well to move forward with stone dusting further on the trail and actually assisting us with funding and matching funding. So that was a great delegation, and thanks to the chair and to Jason for stick handling that one as we move forward. Item number 2 is again another piece of information about Roma, and again, Councillor Brose, chair of Community Services, the warden and staff were involved in a meeting with Minister Steve Clark, where it was affordable housing was discussed and attainable housing was discussed. and opportunities moving forward on items that the county has been involved with, including several strategies we've been engaged in, and how to move the housing situation, if you want to call it that, forward in the county of Renfrew on behalf of all the citizens and those looking for housing and relocating in this area. So, Chair, those are the two items of information. I can move to resolutions if you like and tackle that, or would you like to go back to
Well, we'll just clean up the information items and then we'll go to your resolutions. So, item number 1 for information. Any comments or questions? Warden.
Thank you very much, Chair Sweet. Again, I mentioned it at County Council, but I think it's important that I mention it here at committee as well. That you did, again, a stellar job of representing the County of Renfrew and the Algonquin Trail. No doubt about it, you can do it with your eyes closed and probably half asleep and you still come across extremely professional. I think that's the value of having people, you know, going to Roma and making presentations when you know the portfolio so very well. So again, thank you to you, Chair, and to Jason for doing an exceptional job. But I'm sure that Minister Mulroney's probably already put the check in the mail.
Well, I was hoping to leave with the check, but she didn't have one with her. But I suggested I mail a pen to her, and just in case she has to sign her name. Just we're teasing a little bit there, but she was very supportive of the trail and the Algonquin Trail in particular. So it's you know, she's the one that made sure that we got the 110,000 tons of stone dust, which is sitting in Stonecliff, not Stonecliff, Du Riviere, and the village of Chalk River, and so we suggested that going forward that we would be willing to cost share on this situation 50-50. We asked for $1 million to help us offset $1 million that we could put in there from the county of Renfrew, and that would take us right through the whole way to Mattawa. That was not sort of poo-hooed, but as Craig said, she did indicate there was a new funding initiative, the $400 million. I think that's spread over 5 years, as I recall. And I think Craig will have something more, or Jason will have something more to talk to us about with that coming up. So with that, any questions or comments on that one? Okay, item number 2. It could just for my benefit, is this a similar type program that has to match the Central Mortgage and Housing Corporation rents, affordable rents type of thing, where it's like 25 or 20% below the market rent type of thing? And is this the one where municipalities have to take it down to residential taxes rather than multi-res type of thing? Is this the same program that we're talking about?
Chair, if I believe you're talking about the SSRF4 is referenced in here, and this is the fund that we're using to build the proposal RFP is out right now for a number of new units in the city of Pembroke.
Yes,
at least the 6. It is meant for it's not rent geared income. It's actually social housing that's meant for those with that are aged or those with mobility issues and are unable to just a supportive housing. Sorry, it's a little bit different.
Accessibility type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So it's a different program then from.
It is a different program.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Anyone want to speak on number 2? Okay. Then we'll go to your resolutions.
Thank you, Chair. The resolution is that the Development and Property Committee recommend that County Council support the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories application to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, or CNSC, Canada's nuclear regulator, to amend its existing site license in order to construct a near-surface disposal facility, the NSDF. And this letter and the appendices that goes along with it as Appendix 3 is following the presentation that you heard from Mr. McBrarty at the County Council meeting of January. This was the ask, if you will, and again, the follow-up from staff and the CNL to be interveners in the process moving forward and offer support to the NSDF as that process moves forward through approval process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So you see the recommendation there. We were interveners the last time. I think Peter, you were one of the spokespeople. That's when they went to that GOGO GoCo model than we were there at the Best Western. I think that's a similar type situation. There was 3 or 4 of us in attendance to the nuclear commission and I think that's what they're looking for again going forward. So that'll be up to the warden to determine how you want to move forward on that. But I think we should take advantage of that and support the nuclear industry. It's a big player in this part of the world. So if you're comfortable with that, or if there's no questions, or warden, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Sweet. And yes, Mr. McBearty made it very clear that, a presence as opposed to a letter would have a much greater impact. So certainly, once this goes past the county council, we'll have to discuss how best to approach that event in April. I was wondering, however, though, that certainly I know, a number of our municipalities would like to support CNL as well, but may not really know what to do or what to say in a letter. And I'm wondering through you, Chair, to Paul, whether or not there's an opportunity for the county to provide some assistance with any of the municipalities that might like to be able to make a presentation of support, but just are not sure of exactly what to do or how to say it. Is that possible going forward?
I'll defer that to Paul. Paul?
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the warden with respect to her question. What I would ask this committee for is direction to staff then to send the information with respect to a submission to the CNSC and how the process works. And what we would do is through Craig's Economic Development Department, who is spearheading this letter that is being worked on right now, we would also provide a copy of our letter once approved by, a copy of our letter and the background, and let them know that this is occurring, and we could do that by email if so directed by this committee.
So just so that I'll understand, I think what the warden's looking for is some sort of template that could go out in terms of the content of a letter. Is that what I understand that could go to the lower tier municipalities to assist them to support this initiative?
Thank you, Chair. And what I'm suggesting is they could see a copy of our letter so they get a gist of what we're putting in it.
Oh, different letters.
And I think what we also need to do is outline the process and the steps and the timing so they don't lose sight of this as well, because there is a requirement that it meets a certain timeline here to get in for submission, which I think is April, Craig. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Yep.
Okay, so you want, pardon me, okay, there you go, is Dan, go ahead, Dan.
Just 2 things, Chair. I'll motion that recommendation. The second part is with the warden's letter, can we not just send it as an action package to our information at town? And once we get that, then we pass our motion and way it goes back using yours as we support the warden's county's view. Because I think every municipality would be different in their language, where we want to be one voice. Does that sound right?
So that's what I was trying to get at here is I think the idea behind all of this is to get the support to their initiative that's coming forward. And I think what Paul is sort of suggesting is here's the flavor of what we're saying, and you word it the way you think it should be from your municipality. I think that's what Paul is saying. I'm not quite sure if that's what the intent is going forward. I see Craig has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. What I was going to suggest, and following up on Paul's the CAO's comments, were to reach out to Mr. Pat Quinn and coordinate this through his office and our offices because I know that CNL was actually going out to several municipalities where requested were not to. So we'll double team this effort with CNL to ensure that we're getting a message out and coordinate that back. It is April 11th. Is that if you wish to submit a written request or a request to actually appear in person, has to be by April 11th. So a bit of time on this, but of course, County Council has to approve this recommendation at the end of the month as well. So
There's a few things going on here. There's one coming from Paul, and there's a different sort of scenario coming from yourself, Greg. And I don't know, Dan, you said you would move something. I don't know whether you're moving this recommendation that is in front of us, or this resolution, that's what you're moving. Okay, so hang on to that. And I'll tidy up this other direction to staff situation at this point. What is it you would like to see? Something from Pat Quinn, the communications individual?
If I can, Chair, what I suggest is this, that we coordinate the similar efforts, and the points aren't forgotten, of course, that the warden and the CEO have suggested. And I believe that is a valid approach. I just want to make sure that it's not in conflict with what CNL is doing and double teaming. So we're just trying to coordinate efforts with CNL's efforts. That's all.
Okay, fair enough. I see the warden, then Jeb. Warden, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Sweet. So if we pass the resolution or the recommendation today, which I suspect we will, between now and County Council, I'm sure Craig and staff can have a conversation and maybe flesh a little bit more background as to how we proceed as a County Council following that meeting.
Okay. I think it's important that we all be on the same page, that there's no question about that, so that we have consistency in the messaging that's going forward. And I kind of like what Craig is saying, that the person who's gone through this more than anyone is Pat Quinn. And he certainly would want to know what T's to cross, what I's to dot, and what the flavor of the letter should actually read. So I think it's important that you go through that. Maybe, as the warden has said, we can, between now and the County Council, we can wordsmith something a little bit that meets the flavor of, I think, what our committee here is trying to get at. Jeb, you wanted to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Craig. I think that would be an optimal idea to talk to Mr. Quinn with regards to the content of the letter. We've dealt with Pat before at Laurentian Hills, and he's been very, very supportive and helpful. And to ensure that we're all saying the same thing is I think is very important for all municipalities and for the county of Renfrew. So I certainly support the initiative that you would be taking with having that discussion with Mr. Quinn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I haven't lost the thread. So we're doing three things. One is a letter from the county, and then also a request to appear as a delegation. And then the second thing we're doing is we're informing our local tiers of our letter and also the process and the timelines for appearing as a delegation at the hearing. And then the third thing is coordinating it all with CNL to make sure there's no rough edges or that we're not going in opposite directions. Is that how I understand this?
Okay. Yeah, we're going to support this resolution today. So it's been moved by Dan. I will get a seconder for that, and then we'll take a vote on that. The next one will be a letter of support from the county going forward. I think that's, is that in this initiative?
Sorry, sir, that is the recommendation.
That is the recommendation. Yes, that's true. Okay, but so that takes care of that. As far as the intervention is concerned, I think that'll have to come from, I'm not sure how that comes from, whether it's from CNN or it's from the commission itself asking for individuals who are interested in making a presentation. That could come from Pat Quinn.
Sorry, to actually be an intervener. That is the recommendation to offer support in writing or otherwise. If I'm taking it that the recommendation, I should never assume. What the recommendation is saying, the committee and council supports in writing and in person a presence in front of the board to show our support as an intervener. Okay. And it's a global recommendation that says that support, and maybe we could have been clear in the recommendation. Support is to mean in writing and as an intervener at the May sessions of the board.
Okay, so let me clean up the actual resolution then. Oh, pardon. So I see the warden's got her hand up. Go ahead, warden.
Thank you, Chair. And it is about the resolution. So instead of saying written intervention or participating, just put written intervention and by participating. That makes it very clear. It's not just one or the other.
Oh, so take the or out. Just a friendly amendment to that background situation. It's just the background that is in there. Is that correct? That it's not part of the resolution. correct? Okay. Craig?
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
we'll tidy it up. The word, there was never and or in the actual recommendation, just says support. It's a generic.
Yes,
support.
that's in the background. Okay. I need a seconder then to accept the resolution that's there. Chad. So it was moved by Dan, seconded by John. Chad, okay? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Then it is carried. Now, what is it you want from here now in direction to staff to contact Pat Quinn? Is that what I understand? Or is that already included in this? Somebody help me here.
Yeah, sure. Direction to staff to work with CNL to communicate the letter of support from the county council
And
to
lower chief.
all local municipalities.
There you go. Okay.
And
Fair enough.
outlining the process for which they can also show their support.
Okay. So that's what the direction to staff is. Evelyn, did you get that?
Yes, I did. Do we need a mover and a seconder for that?
Yeah, no, I'll get to that. I just was concerned that you got the actual flavor of what where the direction to staff was. Okay, we got that. So I need a mover and a second for direction to staff. So Kathy, seconded by Peter. Any discussion on that? And I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It is carried. There we go. Okay, everybody's happy with that one, so we can move on, right? Okay. All right, with that, then we'll go to economic development. Alistair.
Your microphone's not working there, Alistair. Microphone.
Still not working, Alistair? Okay.
Craig, did you want to run through it?
Yeah, just about to find his pages. Sorry, I'll run through it in Alistair's absence unless he finds his microphone.
Page 15.
Thank you, sir. All right, item number 1 of the Economic Development Division report is a local immigration partnership presentation as attached. So we've been involved with the LIP, or the Local Immigration Partnership, for quite some time, and we thought we'd copy that. Of course, recruitment of newcomers to Canada is very important to the workforce and remains to be a high priority on economic development's list of things to watch. And what we thought we'd do is just include the presentation that was given to the OVED group last week. And of course, that they work with Algonquin College, and that information is there for you and your committees.
Testing
and
1, 2, 3.
Excellent, Alistair. I'm glad for you to take this on. So you're on to number 2. There you go, sir.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think the system reset between this morning and today. Sorry. And we're at item 2, our business survey. So Business Development Officer David Waibu put together this survey, and it was based on the survey we had done back in 2020. And we've have the committee, you have the interim results as of the time of preparing this report. We now have the final results, where we had 122 responses from businesses. And in the package, starting on page 21, you'll see the preliminary interim results of the survey. And we certainly now could share with committee after this meeting the final results. But you can see the sentiment of industry, about 122 responses from a broad cross-section. So a very useful tool as we look at where we can assist the business community going forward as we recover from COVID and move beyond it. So it was COVID recovery based, but also thinking of general business needs into the future as well. Item 3 is regarding our economic development, agricultural economic development committees. We have 2 separate agricultural committees. One was always focused on economic development. One was brought together all the farm organizations as an agricultural leadership advisory committee. Many of the ag sector representatives are common to both committees, and discussions have begun about combining the 2 committees. Both committees are in accord, and we're just working on terms of reference and a vision and goal for an amalgamated committee moving forward. So that's an update perhaps on streamlining and making more efficient our relations with our agribusiness sector. Chair, that is the ECDEV report.
Thank you very much. Back to information item number 1, the local immigration partnership. Any comments or questions on information item number 1? Nothing. Item number 2, the survey for the business community. Then we'll go to item number 3, the
Sorry, the warden has a question.
for which one?
Number 2.
Number 2?
Yes, please.
Sorry?
Yes, please.
Number 2, go ahead.
So I was just wondering, is there planned recommendation coming from staff after they, well, I know the survey just finished, I suppose. I'm just wondering if there's going to be a need for us to look as a county council to look at, we had that local economic recovery committee set up where we had allotted some funds to assist the business community. I'm just wondering if there is going to be follow-up to some recommendations for this as well, because when I looked at the results, loans are great, but folks are looking for grants, something to just give them a leg up again.
Alistair.
Through you, Chair, response to the warden. Certainly, yes, we just finished it up on Friday, the survey, and wrapped it up. And so we in ECDEV will put our heads together and have a look and see if there are a couple of things we can pull out. There was definitely a request, if you will, for ongoing support. There are many COVID recovery support programs online right now and coming online in a variety of sectors. So we're going to go through where there is existing support and see if we can find some gaps that will reflect what the survey shows our business sector requires. So we'll probably have something in the next couple of days as a beginning.
Okay. Peter?
Thank you. Is there any consideration to doing this a couple times a year for the next, say, 18 months? Because I think, some of the things that I think I've been hearing and probably everybody in the room has been hearing is that this is going to be around, recovery is going to take between 18 and 24 months, depending on the start date. So if we designate today as the start date or July 1st, is there any thought to continuing to seek information? And then secondly, if I might share, if we do that again, if we can get a little better sense of the age group and the spread, how many people are close to retirement in the employee groupings, because I think that might be helpful as well.
Okay, thank you. Alistair?
Through you, Chair, yes. So yeah, we actually have been finding, we engage, one-on-one a lot and through our sector committees, but we have found the surveys very helpful. And to date, the business sector they have not shown us that they're suffering survey burnout, which earlier on in COVID was the case. So the merit of doing it a few more times in the next 24, 18 months certainly has merit, and it helps us get a good picture of the sentiment. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind and probably be acting on that. And the second to update, so if you will, to enhance the survey in the next round, it's a great idea. And we know it's high, and we can see if we can get a picture of that from, again, this small to large, all business sectors response that we seem to be able to generate.
Thank you. Further on to item number 3, merging of these two committees. Any comments or questions? Okay, nothing. Then we'll go to Ottawa Valley Tourism, page 43. Mr. again.
Thanks, Chair. Information item 1 is about the Staycation Tax Credit. So it's the Ontario Staycation Tax Credit. And just that was announced by the province of Ontario. We've been sharing the information with the customer community and with our tourism sector, just so they're fully aware of this opportunity and that they take the opportunity to exploit this with potential customers. Past clients and with people making new bookings or asking questions about new bookings. So it's the accommodators, and that ranges from hotels and motels to campgrounds and inns and bed and breakfast, that anybody who collects the GST, HST and provides us a sales receipt to their customers, then the customers can make this claim for a tax credit on their income tax. So it's we've had good support from our media with helping share the spread the word, Cogeco and the MyFM network, and also item 2 gets into this as well. So that's item 1. Item 2 is regarding Choice Hotels Canada, and that's the Ascend group of hotels, Choice, Quality Inn, and many others under the brand. So they, to support their chain of hotels, they have launched a campaign to promote the Staycation Tax Credit in Ontario. Excuse me. And they've reached out to us to engage us as the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association in that program, where they will present to their customer base, which is global, really a collection of the things to do and the attractions here in the Ottawa Valley that would encourage people to book vacation stays and visits to their hotels in the Ottawa Valley. Great opportunity for the OVTA to ride along with a major global accommodation chain to promote the Ottawa Valley and attract more visitors here. That was item 2. Item 3 is about our membership and tourism industry outreach. Our recently hired, I guess you'd say, tourism industry relations and digital marketing coordinator, Aaron Norris, has been pretty active on engaging with our industry members, recruiting new members, contacting our existing and older members, and also with a lot of communications and creating web content for our new website. And so that's been going very well. And again, it's sort of harkens back to the ECDEV survey of businesses, very appreciated by the businesses to receive updates, information, and some personal attention to their specific needs. Item 4 is about our major print promotional material for each year. And of course, it's also an online version. That's the Ottawa Valley Roadmap. And it's a roadmap of the whole Ottawa Valley. It also is always a directory of the tourism suppliers. So that is literally at the printers. It will soon be hot off the presses. Very exciting as we went to a new format this year. We had to expand the size to reflect the demand for advertising from our industry. So it's a good sign that the industry wants to make sure they connect with the customers locally, nationally, globally, and are putting their money into advertising on the roadmap. 80,000 copies, and it'll be hopefully a more normal year. These will be distributed to the visitor information centers locally, the travel information centers across Ontario, retailers, and to our outfitters, attractions, and accommodators as well. All the member businesses in the Valley. Now that just if I may, Chair, just a heads up to committee that our annual tourism awards are coming up, and on Valentine's Day, February 14th, stay tuned. That's the opening of nominations for the tourism awards, the OVTA. We recognize the leading business, leading event, and the leading, if you will, individual tourism champion in our awards. So please note those nomination documents, and we encourage you to encourage people in your municipality to nominate tourism industry members. Thanks, Chair. That's the OVTA report.
Thank you, Alistair. Item number 1 under information, the Staycation Tax Credit. Comments? Seeing none. Marketing campaign with the Choice Hotels. Item number 2. Tourism outreach. Item number 3. And item number 4. Okay, with that, we will go to Enterprise Renfrew County, which can be found on page 45. Alistair, please.
Thanks, Chair. Information item 1 is about a staffing update. So our program officer, Kim Fraser, who's been with us for many years, for 14 years, is leaving the service of the County of Renfrew, not necessarily retiring. She's going to look for a change of activities. We're going to miss Kim. She was the lead on the summer company, the Student Entrepreneur Program, and ran that very well for many years, of course. And so we just, wishing Kim the best as she moves on at the end of this month. So we'll be, of course, seeking to fill that position. Item 2 is just an update. Our interim report in the province of Ontario fiscal year ended March 31st. So we're wrapping up a lot of things with them. It's usually a challenging time for us with, they want a lot of details and information. They're getting it, and we're on track there. We anticipate, just so committee knows, we've been told, nothing's firm yet from the province, but we've been told to expect essentially the very same financial support next year, 2022-23 fiscal for them. And they are satisfied that we continue to deliver essentially the same, on the same goals and objectives and achieve the same results as we did in 2020, 21, 22. So that's a lot. It was a good level of work. We were highly successful with our key programs in general consultations as well, and giving out financing to a lot of businesses across the county. So the direction, the guidance from the province about where we're going to be going is positive at this point. That's the one thing that you'll see in your report. There's a table, a chart. It might be a little hard to read. We had some residual funding and from our programs and from our activities, because we saved on a lot of expenses in this COVID period. So we created, and this was an initiative of the staff, we created a windfall program to fund some of our past clients. So you see them listed there. They got up to $1,500 extra each. These were all firms we've assisted already and advised, and they went through a short application process and a full review and were awarded funds. A couple of really grateful businesses, very, very expressive of their support, their happiness with the extra support. It was rewarding to see these guys being successful, and where a little bit more money would just help them overcome a few more hurdles. So, Chair, that's the ERC report.
Thank you very much. Staffing update to Kim. Thank you for your service. We wish you well. 14 years, that's quite a career that has been with the County of Renfrew. We wish you well. Item number 1, any comments? The interim report on item number 2. When I look at the names, Alistair, on your list here, it's a fair cross-section of the County of Renfrew, various municipalities from Headclare, Maria, all the way down to Deep River, Whitewater Region, Killaloe, Laurentian Valley, Town of Pembroke. There's a fair cross-section represented by your graph here, your report here, and a pretty comprehensive type of creative employment issues here and businesses, etc. Job well done to them. Anything on number 2? Okay, with that, then we'll go to Forestry Gis. We'll turn that over to Jason.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee members. The Forestry GIS report will be found on page 47 of your committee package. First item under the forestry information, and there's a lot to unpack in this first little paragraph. I'll draw your attention to the chart of the revenues in 2021. So we do have the final revenue numbers, and just a little over $224,000 in revenues for 2021. So a job well done. Even during these the COVID times, revenue was still being produced and generated on the Renfrew County forests. Also in that first paragraph is that an update of the annual summary that Lacey produced. You see that on pages 53 and 54. The summary of the activities in 2021. And within that, just to draw your attention to a number of items specifically, and we've talked about this before, is the outreach and education that forestry staff has for different organizations. And Lacey's highlighted just a few with Fleming College and Algonquin College and some of the high schools within the region. So a good job for the forestry division and the outreach and education. And what we'll do with all the information that we talked about today, we'll post this information on the County of Renfrew website to make sure that you as the elected and the public will be aware of the different activities that the forestry and GIS contribute throughout the year. Also in that package of the or paragraph in number 1 is a summary of the 5 years. It's been 5 years since the 10-year forest management plan has occurred. I can't believe it's been 5 years when Lacey brought this to my attention. I still remember in 2017 in front of County Council, which was approved, this 5-year management plan. And now it's 5 years later. So what you see on pages 55 is a summary of activities within those 5 years for the forest management plan. I've asked Lacey in the future committee report to do a presentation of the 5 years and provide an explanation of where we're at within this plan. So it's a good role to play in the sense of reviewing this every once in a while. And 5 years is the midterm point. So I appreciate the summary. And again, we'll bring this to committee's attention with the presentation from Lacey in the near future. Moving on to item 1B is just again, we've talked about this one also before, an upcoming forest operation in our Beachburg track. Again, as a reminder, the Beachburg tract is one of our most used tracks. We have a tender going on. We'll have a tender going on in 2022. And we want to make sure that the public's well aware of this. The local municipality, Whitewater region, is well aware of this, and the organized trails groups that use this forestry track. So what you see here on pages 56 and 57 is outreach and education package for this forest tender and this forest operation that will be happening in 2022. And also in the report, just to inform and remind the committee, even though we're collecting money, revenues from Renfrew County Forest, we will do regeneration efforts after this occurs, and it will be expensive to do regeneration efforts in the Beachburg tract. So you see in the report up to $65,000 will be put towards regeneration once the forest operations have occurred. Item 1C, again, this is something, another review and a summary of the forest health of Renfrew County Forests and local forests as a general. Lacey Rose did present to County Council about this. And what you see on pages 58 to 62 of your committee package is a summary of that report. One thing I'd like to announce also is I see through an email today, it looks like they're renaming the Gypsy Moth. So initial names, I guess, is going to be called, it may be called the Spongy Moth. So that's news to me today. And maybe they will be official in the near future, but that's my understanding that they're going to try and rename the Gypsy Moth to the Spongy Moth in the near future. Moving on to item number 2 is just an update from Shaw Woods. So Shaw Woods did do a press release. You'll see that press release in your committee package on page 63 and 64 about the activities Shaw Woods is completing in their forest area about beech bark disease, I should say. So the beech bark disease is well established in the Shaw Woods. And what they're doing is they're doing some activities to minimize the beech bark impacts in their area. If you have a chance, please walk that area. I was there just this past weekend. It's very interesting the way they approached the beech bark disease in their area. Moving on to item 3 in the forestry section, amendments to the Species at Risk Act. And you'll see in pages 65 to 69 that the province did put a 2-year moratorium on the black ash species at risk. So it's good news in our situation. We supported this action item to postpone any policies and procedures dealing with black ash. As we all know, it's well established in Renfrew County. So I think it gives this 2 years will give the province time to get a balanced approach to how to protect the black ash moving forward. And item number 4, Chair, is you mentioned this before, where staff always looks out for grant opportunities. Item number 4 is another grant opportunity called Red Rural Economic Development. In the past, the county has been successful through this funds for the KNP Trail and for the Algonquin Trail. But the latest release that happened on this late in February, early February, I should say, is a bigger amount that the municipalities can apply for. We will apply for this. We brought this fund to the attention of the Algonquin Trail Advisory Committee, and we told that committee, and now we're telling this committee that the County of Renfrew staff will apply to this fund. We'll apply to the maximum amount that we can for the Algonquin Trail to move forward. And you see in the committee package also that staff has been directed by county council to apply for any and all funds when necessary. And we will try to apply for funds and let this committee and council know that when we apply for funds, but there will be opportunities and times where we don't have the timelines to do this, but we will still apply. And we'll tell this committee and look for approval after we're successful, because we're always successful. Maybe not necessarily, but when we're successful, we'll bring this back to the committee for review and acceptance. So that's item number 4, Chair, Rural Economic Development Fund.
Just before you leave that, Jason, it was sort of suggested that the Algonquin Trail and the KMP Trail should be applying for grants and applying for them and so forth. So on behalf of the Algonquin Trail and Development of Property, I asked Jason if he could do a quick calculation on the actual monies that we have applied for and received since the inception of the trail itself. And just to let you know, the money that we have received to date that has been spent on the trail through the grants that we've received from various areas is just a little under $4 million in grants that we've actually received and have actually invested that on the trails themselves. And if we go forward with the presentation and we do get some money both here and with this one and the one that I made at the Roma, then there would be just very close to $5 million if we're successful. So we do apply and we are successful. And I think that's an important number for members of committee and county council, for that matter, to know that we do go after these grants. Okay, Jason?
Thank you, Chair. And at this time, maybe I'll just again reach out to and make sure that the committee is aware that we do, or I do, rely on ECDEV staff, specifically Alistair Baird, with these applications. So thank you very much to Alistair Baird for helping with these applications that we apply for. Item number 5, Chair, is GIS. Near and dear to me is GIS. We have an opportunity to present to local municipalities, and with COVID, the restrictions and other items that are moving forward at a very fast pace, we haven't reached out as much as we could about GIS, how GIS supports local municipalities. So staff will be reaching out to local municipalities to set up a virtual meeting for next Wednesday, not tomorrow, but next Wednesday, the following Wednesday, to talk about GIS, to talk about the mapping that the county provides, and also an opportunity. Right now, the County of Renfrew is aware of the service provider. So the County of Renfrew does use a software called ESRI or ESRI for our desktop licenses. We use it quite heavily. We do a number of things with it, but there's an opportunity with ESRI through the small government enterprise license agreement. We can apply for a special, I'm going to say an application to provide unlimited access to GIS software, not only to Renfrew County staff, but to all local municipal staff. So this is a benefit both towards us and to local municipalities. But again, what we'll do is we'll bring this to the attention of local municipalities, have a quick presentation, review and discussion, and bring back to the March or April's DNP either a business case or a recommendation to talk about GIS moving forward within the County of Renfrew and local municipalities also. I see this as a great benefit, and hopefully the local municipalities will see that also. Maybe what I'll do, Chair, is I'll leave it at that before I go to resolutions, or would you like me to go through the resolutions?
Okay, I'll just do the information items first, and then we'll do the resolutions, okay? Information item on the forestry activities, item number 1A. 1B. 1C. Which one, Peter? 1A or 1B? Or 1C?
B, please.
B, 1B, go ahead.
Quick question to Jason. With the reseeding, what's the estimated timeline before before that tract could be, where it's seeded could be harvested? Is that a 25-year or 30-year window?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Iman. So in reality, it'll be a 30-year window before the first thing. So what this shelter would cut in the regeneration won't be specifically red pine, it'll be a mix of different trees. So it won't be the typical a quick turnaround time. Maybe even be after my lifetime.
That's an interesting question you asked, because I asked the question, when do you start thinning out the Expo 150 forest or bush lot that we planted in 2011. It seems to me it's grown up to the point where you could be trimming it, but I guess it's 20, 25 years or even 30 years on before you thin it out. So yeah, it's an interesting question. We're on the same page there, Peter. On 1B, 1C, the Shaw's Woods, number 2, the beech bark disease. What happens to these beech trees? Do they just die, or is that what happens to them? And over a number of years, can the wood be used for lumber or veneer or anything like that? No?
To yourself, Chair. So yes, some of the material can be used, but typically in this situation for the Shaw Woods, as their management plan describes, they'll leave it in the bush as is where is.
Okay.
But yes, if there's merchantable, if it's on the county lands, we will use it when we can where it's merchantable.
Sure. I see Sheldon's got his hand up.
Yeah, and thank you, Chair. And just for a little more information for committee, usually by the time you see the first infection in a beech tree, probably within 3 years, those trees will completely succumb to the disease. Typical reaction on Crown land right now is to just put beech on the house and cut everything as you go. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Just curious. I'm not a lumber person, you can tell, right? Okay. Okay, further on to Jack.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you, back to Sheldon. I was just wondering, at what point in time do they use it for firewood? Is once the beech yet infested, can it be used at further along, or is it too late by then?
Go ahead, Sheldon.
Yeah, usually for the first year when it has the first sign of the disease, which is the white on the tree, it's usually still salvageable. But once it gets to the red stage, it's usually by then the tree is too rotten. You'll have an outside core of approximately 1 to 2 inches, and really the wood becomes no good. One thing beech used to be really good for in the forest industry was for ties for the railway industry. And it was a huge product for that. But now with the invention of concrete ties, the demand for ties has actually been substantially reduced.
Thank you for that. Further on that. And item number 3. The Algonquin Trail, item number 4. Item number 5, GIS. Okay, back to you, Jason. You're now on to your resolutions.
Thanks, Chair. So item number 6 under resolution found on page 50 of your committee package is the Indian River tract name. And so what I'll do is read the recommendation and give a brief background, if I may. And the recommendation that the Development and Property Committee direct staff to engage with the Algonquins of Ontario to review the Indian River tract name and request possible new names that may reflect historical significance of the geographic location of the tract to the Algonquin Nation. And further, that candidates for a new tract name be brought forward to this committee for a review at a future date. And as background, committee, you'll be aware that the number of municipalities are reviewing different names, both street names and other names within their municipality. We're doing the review, and we noticed this name, the Indian River tract, which was named after the local river that ran through and close by, the Indian River. It may have some cultural impact. So we're looking to see if we can review this with the Algonquins of Ontario to see if there's a better appropriate name for this tract. And just basically we're doing our due diligence moving forward, Chair.
Thank you.
You want me to stop or keep going for the recommendations?
No, I'll deal with that right now. So you see the recommendation there. Let's get a mover and a seconder for this recommendation, and then we'll go into discussion. So it's Peter and Kathy, okay? We're moving this discussion. Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It is carried. Item number 7.
Item number 7, Chair, is just the Algonquin Trail Advisory Committee 2022 work plan. The recommendation is that the Development and Property Committee approve the 2022 work plan as presented for the Algonquin Trail. And as background, staff always prepares a draft work plan or a work plan for the maintenance funds of the Algonquin Trail. This work plan was presented to the recent Algonquin Trail Advisory Committee just last week, and they approved this work plan as we move forward. And as background, County Council approved a base budget for the Algonquin Trail of a little over $254,000. Staff is looking to maximize the reserve funds from the 2017 zombie run of $14,000 and also utilize the gracious donation from the Renfrew County ATV Club of $40,000. So what you see in your committee package on page 51 is a breakdown of what county staff will be using those funds, which totaled little over $308,000 for the trail maintenance on the Algonquin Trail. I don't think you appreciate going through line by line items for this work plan, but I do want to highlight a number of items within that spreadsheet. One of the larger items is the trail resurfacing between Renfrew and Arnprior. You'll recall we did complete this section in 2018 through our OMCC funds. And what staff did at the time to make the trail open, we did do a more of a thin application of stone dust at the time, and we're paying the price for it right now where the stone dust is actually being absorbed. I call it absorbed or going through the voids of the trail base. So we're going back to apply a little more a 2-inch skiff of stone dust back in that area. And that's a $70,000 application of stone dust in this area. Also, what we're looking at is to do a trail resurfacing in the city of Pembroke. This section was the initial section that the county did, the very first section in 2017 in preparation for the zombie run. We used a product called Pit Run Aggregate, not as good as the limestone aggregate. And we want to readdress that with another 2 inches of packed limestone stone dust to make a consistent uniform surface from end to end. So those are the two kind of big ticket items within that maintenance plan. You also see some structure approaches, some dust suppression where it says calcium, and we always have fencing requests when necessary. So without going into detail for each line item, I will by any means, but that's the work plan for 2022 within the approved County of Council budget. Also, before I go or let go, is just to acknowledge the $255,000 in the budget according to the ICIP grant. So committee, you're aware that we were successful in ICIP grant for $255,000. We are still working with the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan for the duty to consult. We haven't finalized this, but we're hopeful this will be finalized in the near future within weeks to months. And then we can apply those funds again to the Algonquin Trail in the Laurentian Hills, Petawawa, town of Petawawa areas. Also in the base budget or the budget of that was approved by County Council was $436,000. Again, just to bring this attention to the to this committee, is that $436,000 is the carry on of the 2021 tender that Splinter started and is currently working on and will finish by the end of June of 2022. So that accounts for all the funds that was given to us by County Council. We will bring back to committee a tender or a review of the projects for the $2 million, the additional $2 million that was discussed and approved by County Council to improve the Algonquin Trail in the near future, but not at this stage, but we will bring this back to the Algonquin Trail Advisory Committee, what and where we're going to spend the $2 million on. So Chair, that is the end of the report, and then maybe I'll stop again there before I go to the addendum.
Okay, item number 7, you see that's recommending that the Algonquin Advisory Committee budget to Development Property Committee. I think you did a nice job of summarizing that particular budget going forward. So if there are any questions before I get a move and a seconder to accept this budget. See, not then I'll ask for a move. You want a question or you want to move it, John? Jeff?
I'd like to, thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask a question and then I don't mind moving it right after.
Sure, okay, your question, go ahead.
Jason, I just directed to Jason. I was looking at the breakdown and I see like nuisance beaver control for 3K. the Algonquin Trail must have, and I have been on some of it, but the Algonquin Trail must have some pretty good bridging, from the, from its previous owners. As I know the beavers are very, very busy, and they can change the demographics of a water area, especially in the swamp area, quite quickly. So I just wanted to mention that obviously the previous owners, the CPR, must have had some darn good bridging in place in order to prevent a lot of these nuisance beavers. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you. But you're prepared to move the
And I will move.
the recommendation. Moved by.
Yes, move.
Is there a seconder for that? Dan? Okay, is there any further discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It is carried. Thank you. Now you have an addendum.
Yes, sir. I do have an addendum. And before I read the recommendation, with some latitude, Chair, I'd like to have a friendly amendment to the recommendation, just for clarity. I'd like to add at the very end of the written recommendation, and I'll explain it when I read the recommendation, if I could, Chair, that the Development and Property Committee recommend that County Council pass a bylaw to execute an agreement with the Ontario Trillium Foundation in the amount of $62,800, and further that funds up to $15,700 be taken from the 2022 provision for unallocated funds for the County of Renfrew's 20% contribution of the grant, and further that the funds be used for the improvements to the K&P recreational trail. That new addition, just for clarity, to make sure we have on the recommendation where these funds will be used specifically to the K&P trail, Chair.
Okay, so to Paul, I just add that to the actual recommendation. There's no need for anything on that because there's been no mover or seconder type of thing. So just add that to the recommendation.
That is correct, Chair. That is the recommendation that has been read into the minutes.
Okay. As with the addition that Jason added there, correct? Thank you. Okay, with that then, are there any questions before I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Again, another good news situation, some more money coming in for the K&P trail. And we'll continue to move that money through and get it in place as quickly as possible. With that, if there's nothing more, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Kathy, seconded by Jeb. No discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It is carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to real estate. I'll call on Kevin. Kevin, are you with us? Yeah, there you go. I see you now. Go ahead, Kevin, your report.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, committee. The real estate report is found on page 72. And information item number 1 is the request for proposal zero emission vehicle infrastructure program. Back in June, the County of Renfrew submitted a request for proposal funding to the zero emission vehicle infrastructure program for the installation of 2 charging stations. Attached in the appendix is a notification, and unfortunately, we were unsuccessful with that application. Item number 2, the RFP design build of multi-residential, the update. There was a mandatory site meeting that was held on January 25th for the multi-residential housing project. And we had 6 contractors or 6 proponents participate and that attended at that site meeting. Of course, we reviewed the details pertaining to the RFP. And afterwards, there were some preliminary questions. The contractors did do a walkabout and they took some pictures of the site. And of course, the deadline for the formal questions ends February the 18th, and the closing date is February 25th. And we've had, since the site meeting, via email, we've had some questions raised from some of the contractors, which have been addressed via email. And that is the items number 1 and 2 under information, Chair.
Okay, fair enough. I'll deal with them right now, then we'll go to your resolution, okay? Item number 1. Any questions on item number 1? Seeing none, item number 2. Dan.
Thank you, Chair. To Kevin, at this meeting this morning, operations, we have a new regulation coming in from the Ontario government with reference to removal of dirt from sites. What did we follow the government guidelines on that to say what we're going to do with the dirt that's being removed to build this complex?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor. That will be addressed, I guess, in the RFP when we receive that, or sorry, in the proposals that we receive. I believe that will be addressed.
Thank you.
Okay, other on item number 2. Okay, then we'll go to your resolution, Kevin.
Chair, I believe Mr. Kelly is going to elaborate and speak to this.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thanks,
Craig.
Kevin. Appreciate that. Thanks, Chair. So item number 3, I'll start with the resolution. The development of property committee recommend to the Community Services Committee to recommend to County Council that the County of Renfrew apply to the Inclusive Community Grants Funding Program for the development of a County of Renfrew Housing Action Plan. And I think it's beneficial to do a bit of a background, perhaps, to give context. So over several years, the county has drafted and worked with communities on such strategies as the housing and homelessness strategy, more recently the seniors housing strategy. In the seniors housing strategy, there were a number of action items to move forward, including establishing housing hubs, if you will, amongst or somewhere in the county. And that word housing hubs or housing communities was meant to establish and look at all of our municipal properties the county owns and other lower tier local municipal assets, property, buildings, and otherwise, to determine where the best fit for housing developments could be, and the intent would be to review those assets and whether it makes sense to provide them as incentives for developments that may or may not, well, that may include all or a portion of affordable housing. The intent of the Inclusive Community Grant Program from the ministry is that it would provide funding for studies or other programs for inclusivity of seniors, for those with disabilities, and other groups in our communities. So what we are suggesting is looking at a way to combine all those studies, and the intent is to hire somebody ultimately to do a consultative strategy and an action plan on reviewing where the properties are, what the properties are zoned. Is it possible that municipalities even want to work with the county on any of these initiatives? Do we send letters out? All that information gathering and developing a succinct action plan to move forward from all these strategies that we have already, to say, okay, at the end of this year, we're going to do this. We're going to bring in best practices about community improvement plans, going to bring in incentive programs from other areas around the world. This is what they do. Can we modify them for our sake? We need to recognize that, of course, and we have, that housing and affordability and even supply is an issue here in the county of Renfrew, that the private developers are doing a darn good job. But what else can we do as a municipal organization to push these forward? So this is a small grant in the grand scheme of things. It's up to $60,000 towards that, but we're putting this on the table as more of a first of a discussion, because we haven't had it yet, about what we all are going to be doing, and collectively we as 18 municipalities, including ourselves, and then you have to include the city of Pembroke, what are we doing with our surplus lands, and can we develop an action plan moving forward from that information. So I think we'll leave it there, and we can happy to answer questions or elaborate as we move forward.
Okay. Wow. Well, I'll open up for questions, comments, discussion. It's a very large project that you're undertaking here. You start doing all of this stuff. Gordon.
Welcome to DMP, sir.
Yeah, no, I understand. Warden.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I agree wholeheartedly with what Director Kelly has just put forward to us. I think that when we look at, we have a homelessness strategy and we have a seniors housing strategy. Now we're going to call this from the action plan. I want to see some action, quite honestly, over the last year and any involvement. I'm sure I'm going to put Councillor Emo on the spot here too. Any conversations that are happening with Roma, AMO, EOWC, the West Ontario Wardens Caucus, the priority is affordable and attainable housing. We're all suffering from that. Prior to Roma, Minister Clark and Premier Ford held a couple of roundtable sessions with big city mayors and then the rest of us non-big city mayor people. And, they heard a lot of information and the same message is happening. So, I mean, I will be thrilled if we get a grant and we're able to hire somebody. I'm really hoping that we're able to find somebody who is able to do this, who is local, who has a vested interest in our community and following through with whatever recommendations are going forward. I think we need someone to come in, take a look at what we have so far, and then take a look at the county as a whole. Someone who, is connected with our municipalities would be ideal. Someone who knows the local economy, our local developers, community services. We need to bring everything together. I don't know if that's what we're going to get for $60,000, quite honestly. But if we don't get it there, I think moving forward, we really need to, as a county, I'm hoping we take a look at how can we be innovative and meet the needs of the residents of our 18 municipalities going forward, because there's too much, I'm not saying that we're guilty necessarily of this, but there's a lot of talk, but very little action. And, the province seems to be interested in action right now. We were able to do a presentation in front of Minister Clark. We asked him to consider funding something that would be innovative and from the County of Renfrew's perspective. We're willing to put ourselves out there to the province and say, give us some funds. We'll develop something that hopefully you'll be able to share and use throughout Ontario. So really pleased with the efforts that Director Kelly has put into this and the thought that he puts behind this. We've had many, many discussions over the last few months about this. And I'm very excited going forward that if this grant opportunity doesn't come to fruition, that we don't lose sight of what we really need to do for our residents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. The warden is correct, and I too agree with what Director Kelly has forwarded to us. I think one of the weaknesses of any cases we put forward is we can never really identify a landmass for the most part for a project or funding that comes on stream. So if we're able to, and I'm going to use deliberately the wrong term, but if we can assemble some land banks in several communities across Renfrew County, so that when funding becomes available or a partner becomes available, then we have something that we can put in the pot, which is our equity, because cash is tight for all the municipalities. But one thing we can offer is land, and I think once the land banks are identified and either joined or show they can be joined, it might behoove us to go ahead and get some zoning in place so that it moves out much quicker. So that's the first point. The second point is Mr. Lawrence issued his report to the province today. Interesting reading. I think it's 40 some pages, a bit high level, but I think we have the opportunity to fill in some of the blanks, and you're going to see an announcement from Roma and some partners in the next little while. We're going to undertake housing strategy or a housing paper playing off of the what was raised in the rural opportunities paper that was issued through Roma. And I've asked if I can be a part of that task force. I think it's important that we in Eastern Ontario, and especially rural Eastern Ontario, have a voice, and I'm hopeful that that'll happen. If not, I have every confidence of the people that will be selected by Roma will be able to represent our asks. But I think there is some positive movement by virtue of the Premier and the Minister speaking to us, and then secondly, with this paper that was released earlier this morning. Doesn't begin to address our issues, but at the very minimum, it puts the conversation out there for everyone, and hopefully nobody gets distracted. And I like what the director has put before us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other on this issue. I think what you brought forward, Craig, is excellent. I think the $60,000 to try and do what I think you want to do is very low. It's a very encompassing type of initiative that you're talking about. So we'll wait and see what happens. I know that we were starting to do some sort of inventory on surplus land along the Algonquin Trail, for example, and there's large tracts of land along the Algonquin Trail, much larger than you might think in terms of the actual trail, where there was former stations or shunting yards or whatever there might be, and in good locations as well. So it's important. I can tell you to follow up on what Peter has said, the land as a lever to access funding is very important. We did that in Petawawa, and 2 schools were built as a result of the town of Petawawa contributing some 40 acres of service land to the school boards, and 2 major schools were built, and a community hub was put in place as a result of land going forward. That would never have happened had we not partnered with the school boards, and land was our contribution as a partnership. And as a result of that, you see the Valor School and the St. Francis of Assisi School that were built. And it wasn't necessarily surplus land, it was just land that was sitting there that was supposed to be used for recreation or school purposes. And we turned it into 2 major initiatives here in there. So land as a partnership fund is very important. It accessed some $40 million because we gave them 40 acres of land. So it is possible to go ahead, Warden, and use that to try and be innovative, to create initiative to solve a problem. So it is possible. And I think, I'll say again, I think $60,000, Craig, to do what I think you want to do. I know there's a little Scottish in you, but you know, you're going to have to stretch 4 quarters into 6 quarters to get what I think you're looking for. But nonetheless, good job going forward with that initiative. I think that's a good move forward for the county of Renfrew. There's no further comments on this. You see the recommendation. I need a mover and a seconder for that, Peter and the Warden. No further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It's carried. Thank you. Let's hope you get that money to move it forward. I think it's important.
Chair, if I can, and I think if I just take 2 seconds to address some of the budgets, I absolutely get it. Consultants and work doesn't come cheap these days for at least good work. But I think what we can offer is a fantastic planning and GIS team who can backstop this with a lot of the municipal data that we already have. And of course, the staff at the local level can definitely help us out, and that should help the budget out in the long run. So again, thank you, committee, for your endorsement and your comments.
Yeah, and I think you have to be creative and innovative in some of these things to achieve what you want to achieve. But I'm sure I'll leave it at that. Okay, with that, we'll go on to Planning Division. Bruce, there you go. Hi, Bruce.
Hello, good morning and afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chair. I have a report today. You'll see that there are 3 information items and 1 bylaw item, and Chair, with your permission, I'd like to turn it over to Alana Zato for item number 1. She is the Secretary Treasurer for the Renfrew County Land Division Committee, and a lot of the changes that are being proposed through item 1 about the planning and changes are related to consent applications. So with your permission, I'd like to turn it over to Alana for a presentation.
Okay, Alana.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm sorry, I was trying to start my video, but it wasn't working. There we go.
There you go.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Sweet and committee. Thank you, Bruce. Bill 276 has provided several changes to the Planning Act, and I'm here today to highlight approximately 10 of them that are changes that are going to affect the County of Renfrew the most, some more often than others. So to get right to it, first change, it's a minor one, I think, for committee's information, but the interpretation section of the Planning Act has been updated to provide a definition for the retained lands. Previously, the regulations gave us a definition of subject lands, which included the severed and retained, but there was nothing specific to spell out the retained. Now we have that. Secondly, and this is more important to the county than you would expect, you no longer need a consent to convey a parcel of land if the property is the whole parcel of land or abutted lands previously owned by joint tenants that would have merged on the death of that joint tenant. So the gist of this change is that abutting lands or properties that are situated side by side will no longer merge on the death of a joint tenant. So that's, it's a big change for County of Renfrew residents, because I don't know how many times we've had people at the counter who have come in where they've had to figure out a way to sell one of their parcels. So an example is husband and wife buy a parcel of land, and then they also buy the parcel beside them. And to be careful not to merge them, they put one of the parcels in both names and they put one of the parcels in only one name. So say they put the second parcel in the wife's name. Unfortunately, husband passes away. So we've now got wife with parcel number 1 and parcel number 2, and they technically merge on title, and she needs a severance to be able to sell them. So this new change to the Planning Act fixes that for them. And it's a really good fix for us. It helps a lot because many times we've been at the counter, the planning counter, talking to people, and they've been very upset to find out that they have to go through a severance, in such an upsetting time. Another part of that is that you no longer need consent to convey a parcel of land if the parcel beside it was previously conveyed with consent. So for example, your retained lands. Previously, you would have had to convey away your severed parcel and then convey away your retained lands so that you didn't own abutting lands, which is a technical thing, but this is also a really good fix for us. Thirdly, when you apply for a severance, you can now actually get a certificate for the retained lands at the same time. There are some stipulations set out in the Planning Act, though. You do have to request it at the time that you make your application. You do need to provide us with an acceptable legal description for the retained lands, and you can't own abutting lands. So the section is clear that the certificate needs to be for the same type of consent that you've just applied for. So I guess basically you couldn't do a lot addition application and get a certificate for that and then turn around and want a certificate for your retained lands. They're two different types of certificate and do two different things. We as staff don't think this is going to require a whole lot of extra work on our part to provide that second certificate. So probably, Bruce can confirm, but I believe an administration fee would be appropriate rather than a whole application fee. Fourth item is a section of the Planning Act that will allow you to convey the retained lands or otherwise deal with your retained lands before you deal with the severed lands. So this is a case, for example, where you've got a severance happening, but somebody's come in and offered you offered to buy your retained lands. Well, you're kind of in the middle of a process of dividing your lands. So you wouldn't be able to sell that portion without the severance finalizing. In this case, you can go ahead and do that. You can convey those retained lands, but the severed application has to be completed, and it has to be completed within the proper timelines. If for some reason that severed parcel conveyance doesn't happen, like if your consent lapses, the transfer that you've done for your retained lands becomes null and void. So it's kind of a tricky section of the Planning Act, and I don't think it's one that's used often. I haven't seen it. There is a section in the Planning Act previously that sort of dealt with that, but this is now something a little bit more clear, and they provided that change for us. Fifth section, you're now able to include outdoor spaces in a long-term lease that's done for a portion of a larger building. So say, for example, you have a restaurant in a mall. Most of the internal portion of the lease is within the mall, but they'd like to have a patio. So you can include that patio portion now with that long-term lease. The sixth option or sixth change they've made is to validations. So a validation application is intended to correct or make effective a prior registered document that contravened the Planning Act. And the change that they've made with respect to validations is that they now have to meet the same criteria that a consent would. Previously, they didn't have to. They had to have consideration of the zoning and the official plan, but they didn't have to meet the same criteria. Now the Planning Act requires that they do. Seventh change for us is a purchaser of a property can now make an application for consent before they actually own the lands. Now that permission has to be given specifically within the agreement of purchase and sale. And when applying, they'll need to provide that specific authorization to us so that we're aware that it's based on an agreement of purchase and sale. We're pretty careful trying to make sure that we've got proper owners and proper authorization when we accept an application for consent. The eighth change they've made is to the timelines for meeting conditions. So previously, when you got a decision with conditions contained in it, you had 1 year to meet those conditions. And if you didn't, your consent was deemed to have lapsed and refused. So the Planning Act has been changed now to provide for a 2-year lapsing period. So people have that extra 1 year to meet their conditions. And I think that's probably a good thing, especially when we're looking at more in-depth reports and studies that are required. Sometimes they take more time to be provided, and surveyors are very busy. So, you know, getting a survey sometimes in a hurry doesn't happen. So this extra time is going to be beneficial. It seems to apply to, it doesn't apply to consents who had lapsing periods before January 1st, 2022. But if you have a decision where the conditions lapse in the new year, so in 2022, apparently, as far as we can tell from the changes to the Act, they would get the benefit of the extra time as well. So, you know, that's pretty significant for applicants at in this time, you know, especially with COVID. Ninth change, an owner can request that a previous consent be canceled for the purposes of merging lots. And this is really useful when you've got 2 parcels and you've with the same owners, and you want to merge them to be one larger lot. Say, for example, you want to put your house in the middle, and you would be kind of straddling 2 lot lines if you did it the other way. This way, you excuse me, you'd be able to merge the 2 parcels, have one enlarged lot, and you're good to go. I've been reading some information related to this, and there is a planning lawyer from Toronto who's been deemed an expert by the Law Society in planning issues, and he feels that cancellation of a consent doesn't really have significant planning issues, and he feels that it's the right of the property owner to give up their protection under the Planning Act that they have if they've got a consent. So we've we're trying to determine exactly what our requirements will be for applying for a cancellation of the consent, but I don't think that they're going to be terribly stringent. And finally, in the 10th change that has come through, Bill 13, which is a related bill to these, contains changes to the Planning Act as well that allows a municipality to delegate a staff member to make decisions on minor zoning amendments. So that's something like the removal of a holding symbol or a temporary use bylaw. These amendments would impact the local municipality because they're the ones who typically take care of zonings, but they will have some, they'll have to think about what they consider minor in relation to delegating that authority. And that'll be something that the local municipalities will have to turn their heads to. But basically, those are the main 10 changes that the Planning Act has brought to us, and some of them are pretty significant and very beneficial to the county. So thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. So I just you stay where you are, Alana, because I'm sure there could be questions for clarity. There's a lot to digest in what you just talked about, and it's very difficult to, but I'm pleased to have your explanation on all of those 10 initiatives. I'll open it up before we go on because that will be fresh in everyone's mind. Any questions for clarity or concerns or comments with regards to the presentation by Alana on the planning changes? There's 10 of them there. We all totally understand them, Alana. There you go. Peter.
Thank you. I don't think I can describe how happy I am to hear about the clauses dealing with what used to be a major problem with the joining of lots. I don't know how many times you had to unjoin a lot or join a lot in the past, especially in rural Ontario with 2 or 3 severances along a strip of road, and then for whatever reason, some would buy the adjoining one. And 10 years later, when they're doing estate planning or retirement planning, found out they had to spend X thousands of dollars to get it severed. So that's probably 20 years, 25 years overdue. I'm glad to see it.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Further? Okay, thank you for that. Chad?
Thank you, Chair. With all the changes that you've provided us, Alana, I'm just wondering if you or Bruce would know, which ones would be the most beneficial to the county of Renfrew with regards to the land use planning. Which would be the biggest hallelujah for the county of Renfrew?
Do you want me to take this one, Elena?
Well, sure. I mean, I think there's probably 2 of them. The cancellation of consent, so being able to get a certificate to cancel a previous consent. I think that's a really big one. But my own personal experience at the planning counter, having to deal with the general public, I think probably the biggest one is the non-merging on the death of a joint tenant. I think that is one that's going to make a lot of people happy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Paul or to Craig. Would this be beneficial to go to the lower tiers, those who don't have planning staff, just the 10 changes? I'd like to see that happen.
To you, Chair, absolutely. What we can do is put it up, and I'll ask Bruce and Alana to formalize this in terms of a memo or an email to the planning staff, along with the actual regulation that came out, and
I think that would be
forward
beneficial.
that along to the clerks or CAOs of the municipalities.
Sure, agreed. I think that would be helpful. Okay, that's just direction to staff at this point. You don't need a resolution of that.
For that matter, I don't believe a resolution is required.
Okay,
thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you for that. Well, thank you, Alana. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Okay, item number 2, then we'll go on.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 2 is a circulation of a draft resolution from the town of Aurora. I don't believe this is the first time that committee has seen it. I think this resolution has been, or a similar resolution has been circulated in the past, but essentially it is asking that other municipalities support and pass a resolution requesting that the province abolish the Ontario Land Tribunal, which is the new word for the LPAT, the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, which previously replaced the Ontario Municipal Board. So the OLT, that's the new Ontario Municipal Board, the new OMB. And that's just an information item that municipality was circulated that draft resolution. Item number 3 is another information item. I think every municipality would have received an email from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and there's a proposal to create a new sub-watershed planning guide. And this is in relation to implementing some of the policies of the PPS, and that there are 2 information meetings that are scheduled for February 16th and 24th. And that planning staff will attend at least one of those sessions so that we're up to date on what some of what's going on at the provincial level and what they're proposing with these guidelines. And then item 4, Chair, is a bylaw.
Just before you go to the bylaws, let's clear up first the information items. Item number 2, this dissolving the Ontario Land Tribunal. We had a little chat this afternoon, Bruce, about this. What would replace that in terms of an ability of an individual who wants to appeal a decision that's made? What is replacing this, or is there just going to be a big hole, or what happens?
Thank you, Chair. So I believe there would be no tribunal system to replace it with, and the only method then for to resolving disputes between a municipality and a developer, or between ratepayers and a developer, would be to filing a court application. I believe that dispute would go through the Superior Court. So the tribunal system would be disbanded, and you then have that more rigid court procedure as opposed to a more sort of flexible and accessible tribunal.
So just so that I'll understand that and committee will understand that, so you want to appeal a decision that's made, could in fact hold up any development until that hearing is taken place, so that appeal was taken place. It could be a year, 2 years, or whatever it might be. That doesn't make too much sense to me, but that is as I understand it. I'll see Peter. Peter.
Chair, you're correct. So the idea seemingly is to transfer the adjudication of these issues to the court system, which is subject to delays. It's already overworked, and then every court judgment can be appealed to a certain degree. So I just don't understand. I don't understand what the benefit would be. Nobody really. I don't remember too many people standing up and cheering for the OMB, and I can't imagine anybody standing up and cheering for the Ontario Land Tribunal. But until the next best vehicle comes along, it's a matter of functioning within their framework that's provided by this one. So I can't support it because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I can't see the benefit here either. That's why I asked. The courts are backlogged all over the place, and throwing this onto their shoulders just doesn't make any sense to me. There's an essence here of transparency, and from what I understand and talking to Bruce, once it's made, if this was dissolved, once a decision is made at the lower tier, that's it. You can't appeal it other than to the courts. Is that as I understand it? Anyway, I don't know what your flavor is, but I don't feel comfortable supporting this. I don't know what the rest of committee feels like. I think from what I can see, we should just be receiving this as information at this point in time. Agreed? Okay. Item number 3, the planning guide, the sub-watershed planning guide. Any comments on that? Okay, I see Peter and then Dan.
To Mr. Howard, through you, Chair. I seem to recall, I'm say 4 or 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7, there was an attempt to include us in the St. Lawrence River watershed or another watershed that was closer by. Is this an extension of that same policy, or is this an attempt to separate us from the larger policy that was floated around some time ago?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to say one way or the other because we haven't attended those staff sessions yet. So I don't have enough information, I don't believe, to answer you at this time. But from what I understand, there are policies in the PPS that state essentially that a municipality, when considering a planning application, should have regard for the greater watershed. And some of those policies have been implemented to a degree into our official plan. There are some watershed policies within the official plan. I think we have 4 different watersheds that we've identified. And so I think the intention of this was to provide some overall guidelines for municipalities of what does it actually mean when you're considering a sub-watershed. And I think they're talking about the smaller watersheds, like for example, the Bosher River watershed or the Madawaska River watershed, as opposed to being the Ottawa River or the St. Lawrence watershed. Yeah, because that watershed takes in probably more than half of Ontario. So I think when they're talking sub-watershed, they're talking about the more local and more specific ones. But to fully answer your question, I think I'd have to attend that information session first to be able to give you a more in-depth answer.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Chair. To Bruce, I guess I'm thinking of the drainage that goes into the watershed. I know there's all kinds of conflict with McNabb and Arnprior, with the water is being drained off the farmer's field going south instead of west, and east, and is going to the Madawaska River to the Ottawa River. So I'm curious if this Drainage Act is going to be a rollover included in this thing or not. Thanks.
Through you, Chair, stormwater management is just one aspect of watershed planning. It is definitely a large component of it, but it can get into greater things as well. And if we think of the efforts, I can't remember the exact acronym for the group around Muskrat Lake, but there's a group that's involved there. And in order to provide some benefits to the water quality for Muskrat Lake, they're proposing, we'll say, sub-watershed type policies where they're looking beyond just the lake, saying, here is all the inputs that are coming into Muskrat Lake, all the nutrient inputs. And so they're looking out beyond the lake, looking at the creeks and the other rivers coming into the lake and saying, are there things that we can do to minimize the introduction of erosion or minimizing the input of nutrients into that system? And so instead of just looking at, 300 meters around Muskrat Lake, they're looking at the surrounding uses and the surrounding land, everything that's inputting into that system. So I think that's what the watershed policies are looking at. So yes, stormwater management is a big component of it, but I think it goes beyond that.
further on 3.
Oh,
Sheldon and then Kathy.
Yeah, and through the chair, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of those sessions for staff. I think what it may end up, and maybe I shouldn't be presumptuous, but I'm sure that this could create a whole new overlay, for staff to plan around, because when you read the definition of a sub-watershed, it's simply defined as an area that is drained by a tributary or some defined portion of a stream. So I think whatever comes forward will be very interesting.
Thanks, Sheldon. Kathy.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I was just going to add on to Bruce's comment. It's the Muskrat Watershed Council that looks at that entire tributary around that area. You were trying to come up with the name, and it is the Muskrat Watershed Council.
Thank you, Kathy. Further on 3. Then we go to item number 4, bylaws. Bruce, the towns and fees. Okay.
Thank you. So I'll start with the recommendation. I'll just read it out. So the recommendation is that the Development and Property Committee recommend that County Council pass the new tariff fee bylaw for applications made in respect of planning matters, and further that bylaw number 8-19 is hereby repealed. So by way of background, the county, under the Planning Act, the county has a tariff of fees bylaw for any person who's making applications under the Planning Act. And that last time that we looked at this bylaw, we updated every so often. Last time we updated this was in 2019. So it is time to take a look at it to make sure that the fees are taking into consideration some of the costs that the county has and the municipalities have, and also looking at further to Alana's presentation, there are a bunch of new changes to the Planning Act which have required us to implement some brand new fees. And also, when the county received our delegated authority for our official plan with the approval of official plan number 31, now that we have delegated approval authority, there's also some changes to the fee bylaw that's required as a change of that. So in the report, I highlighted a number of the key changes. I didn't indicate every single one, but attached as an appendix is a bold and strike through copy of the bylaws where you can compare the old fee versus the fee that staff are proposing. And another area that I'd like to highlight is related to a new proposal for general inquiries. And on average, so this comes out of a recommendation from the Planning Services Review that was undertaken probably about a year ago now. On average, it takes approximately 300 minutes of staff time to process one of these general inquiries that we have, which averages out to about $300 of staff time. And so based on that planning service delivery review, we're recommending that anyone who submits a general inquiry would be required to pay a fee. And then if the general inquiry becomes an application where planning fees are due, that original inquiry fee is credited towards that application cost. And if we're looking at, also included as an appendix is a comparison chart looking at the County of Renfrew fees compared to other municipalities and other jurisdictions. And looking at that comparison fee chart, many municipalities that have chosen to, some have chosen not to implement a charge, but for the ones that do implement the charge, the average cost is around that $300 mark. And so it's proposed that as staff that we're proposing that the county implement a fee of $200 for general inquiries, but again, that fee be offset by a reduction of $200 for the planning application fee if that inquiry results in an application within a 12-month period of having a response. So some of the other key changes, they're just at the bullets at the end of the report. It's proposed that consent applications be increased by $100 to $1,200. Further to Alana's report at the beginning of the information on the changes to the Planning Act, there's a new fee for cancellation certificate. We're proposing a $300 fee. There's a new fee for an additional certificate. Again, we're proposing a new fee of $100. Validation of title. The requirements under the Planning Act have changed so that now a validation of title is now being considered the same as a consent application. It has to go through the same process as a consent application. And so therefore we're recommending an increase from the $550, which it currently is, to $1,200 to match that consent application because the level of work now is the same. There's a new fee for minutes to the County of Renfrew official plan. This is as a result of, again, the approval of official plan amendment number 31. We're proposing a amendment fee of $2,000 and a new fee for the approval of the adopted local official plan amendment of $500. This is for example, the town of Arnprior or township of Lurchin Valley and Renfrew and Deep River. So when they've adopted an official plan amendment, that comes up to the County of Renfrew for approval, and there's a significant amount of staff time and work required to approve that document. And so we're proposing a fee of $500. And then there's also some changes for local planning approvals. So the local planning approvals, this is where the local municipality has requested that the county provide a service or a review of a development application. And then this is the fee that is charged from the County of Renfrew to the local municipality. We're proposing to increase the fee for an official plan amendment by $400 to $1,500, increasing the zoning bylaw review fee from $100 to $850. A new fee for processing minor variance applications. So this has a little bit nuanced. So right now, for certain municipalities, they have requested a different level of service when it comes to our assistance for minor variance applications. Sometimes municipalities just want us to write a planning report for them, and there's a separate fee for just planning report only. But recently, local municipalities have asked us to take a larger role in the minor variances, for example, actually attending committee meetings or acting essentially as their secretary treasurer for their minor variances. And so in that case, this is where a municipality wants us to essentially run their local committee of adjustment, for lack of a better word, but attend meetings, do all the notices, and meet with their applicants, and that would also include a planning report. So we're proposing a fee of $750 for those minor variance applications. And similar for local consent applications, it's not so much applicable anymore because McNabb Brayside has recently asked that the county take over the approval authority and the approval function for consent applications, but this would have been for essentially McNabb Braeside when they asked us to come in and run their land division committee. Currently, there's not a fee for site plan application review, so we're proposing a flat fee of $500 for the review of site plan applications. And a new fee also for, so a very common requirement for new plans of subdivisions on waterfront is that any building on those waterfront lots are required to go through the site plan control process as well, just to make sure that all of those reports and information that was submitted on behalf to get that subdivision approved are actually implemented at the building stage. So it's a carry forward. So we're proposing a small fee of $50 for a site plan review fee, where that is a lot that's already in an approved plan subdivision. And that's just double checking to make sure that the site plan is implementing all those recommendations, whether it's requirement for a vegetated buffer or making sure that certain grading or site alteration has taken place. Increasing the minor variance fee for report only by $25 to $400, and for a consent planning report only, increasing that by, should be $25, not $24, up to $400. And then the new fees, this is where it gets a little complicated. I shouldn't say complicated, but further to the original first discussion, a new fee for where the county of Renfrew is the approval authority. So that could be a consent application or a plan of subdivision application. Proposing a fee of $200. If there's additional consultation, we're proposing a reduced fee of $50 for, if somebody wants to come in with a revised application, we can look at that for a reduced fee of $500, or sorry, $50. And then again, that the planning fee for the application submitted within 12 months of receiving that response be reduced by $200. So if we use a consent application as an example, we recommend people come through us to do a general inquiry. They would come in, pay a $200 pre-consultation fee. We would provide them with a response. And then when that applicant, if provided they come in and file that application within 12 months of receiving that response, instead of having a $1,200 fee, their fee would be $1,000. And so that's how that process would work. For applications where the local municipality is the approval authority. So sometimes we'll do a pre-consultation where it's a zoning bylaw amendment or a minor variance application where the local municipality has the approval authority. And for those types of applications, there is not a fee that the county sends to the applicant. In this case, it's the county sends the fee to the local municipality. So our proposal is when a application is submitted for a local approval, a fee of $200 is paid to the county for that general inquiry. But then if that inquiry turns into a planning application at the local municipality, that the planning fee to the local municipality be reduced by that $200. And then if the local municipality wanted to pass that savings on to the applicant on their end, that is at their discretion. And then again, so for applications, sometimes there might be joint applications. It may result in an application to both the county of Renfrew and the local municipality. And again, so we're proposing that $200 fee, or that the general inquiry fee, that it be the fee to the local municipality be reduced by that $200. And we've updated the very last point is that we've updated our hourly fees to align with the County of Renfrew schedule of fees. We had a County of Renfrew schedule of fees and a planning service level of fees, which didn't match, which was creating some confusion. And so we've updated so that they are aligned. And I believe that is the end of the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you for bringing that forward. You are correct. It is time to review the actual tariffs of fees. It should be done on a regular basis, and I appreciate this coming forward. Let's open it up and see what members of committee feel about the suggestions that Bruce has put in front of us today. Any comments from committee? Dan.
Thank you, Chair. I read this probably 4 or 5 times and I'm totally kerfuffled. So hypothetically, we're in Arnprior and we have a developer who wants to develop a subdivision. The subdivision comes to the county and he pays the $200 just to say hi. Then he goes back and he does his subdivision through the official plan and the bylaws at the town. The county then sends back his $200 to the town and the town can then give him the $200 back. Is that, was I right in that?
I'll need to defer to Bruce.
So I know there's probably going to be an answer, Bruce, but I guess what I'm, going to request or suggest is we have a planner in our municipality who I'd like to take this back to and say, hey, does this sort of make sense? Because I'm not a mathematician. I know it's got the backing of the provincial, the Planning Act and all that good stuff, but just on a common sense, dumb Edmontonian, I'd like to get an opinion from an outside source, and that would be our planner. If we can sort of defer this for a month or so. Thanks.
Thank you. To Bruce.
Thank you, Chair. So to answer your question, Councillor Lynch, the way that it would work, so the County of Renfrew does not provide any planning services to the town of Arnprior for your local approvals. So there's no fee to the town of Arnprior. So for a developer who's coming to the County of Renfrew for pre-consultation, for example, on a planned subdivision, that's a county approval. So they would pay the $200 general inquiry fee, and then they would receive a credit to their application when they submit the planned subdivision application, and the county would credit that fee to them. So instead of paying, for example, just off the top of my head, a $5,000 subdivision fee to the County of Renfrew, they would pay a $4,800 subdivision application fee. So that, I'll say that credit for the general inquiry does not go to the town of Arnprior, because you guys, as you mentioned, you do have your own planner, and there is never a fee because you don't use our services for your local approvals. So there's no fee from the County of Renfrew ever to the town of Arnprior.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'll say a few words, and then this will maybe pique some interest or some comment or whatever. I'll play the devil's advocate here. Going through the official plan, when we were trying to make a Made in Renfrew official plan, it became quite obvious to me that there was a lot of municipalities within the County of Renfrew that were very small municipalities, and a lot of them, their growth was made through severances and not through plans of subdivision and OPs and all of that sort of stuff. So it became quite apparent to me that there was a need for some assistance or some help with some of the planning issues in lower tier municipalities. And I asked Bruce this afternoon how many municipalities in Renfrew County have a planner type individual on staff. And out of the 17 municipalities, there's 6, which means 11 don't have planning and rely to a certain extent on the expertise of either their clerk, or if there's something difficult there, the County of Renfrew. I think we should be encouraging growth within the County of Renfrew. And if it means encouraging growth for the smaller municipalities by way of severances, I think we should make it easier for them in order to get that information. And I question, quite frankly, if we're sending the wrong message out there to all those folks who are trying to sever a piece of land or do some building or whatever it might be. Planning, as you can appreciate, we just went through it with Alana, is to say the least a minefield in terms of what's out there and what you can't do, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a need for expertise, and that's where we have the likes of Bruce and Alana, and to a certain extent Craig or Paul, who's a planner as well, that can help take care of some of these initiatives. By putting a charge in there, I'm wondering, I don't know, by putting a charge in there, it would necessarily reduce the workload, which, as I understand it, there's a substantial backlog. I don't know why a $200 charge would would reduce that workload. Maybe it will. I think there's been other reasons why there's been a bit of a backlog there. And I think we know that, we've been short some staff and stuff like that. I'll say this, I'll say to you that the minute you take a $200 check or a charge, there is an expectation that you will get delivery of that particular request that you're looking for, and you're not going to wait 30, 60, 90, 80, 100 days or whatever it might be. You want it now, or you want it within 2 weeks and so forth. So I could suggest to you that perhaps by charging this, you're putting additional pressure on our planning staff. I'll leave it at that at this point in time, and I'm sure that may solicit some comments out there. But I think we have to look after some of the smaller family of Renfrew County, and that is the lower tiers that do not have planners on staff. I'll leave it at that, and we'll see what happens. Janice.
I'm having trouble with, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm one of those smaller municipalities. We depend 100% on severances. And maybe to some of you, $200 isn't a lot of money, but it's a lot of money to a lot of people. I agree that I think that those pre-consult do help to the process. And I think we should suck that $200 up. That encourages more and more development. And I will not be supporting that because that's how we survive in my township. We don't have big developments and things that the bigger municipalities have. And the kind of development that you people have, $200 is a drop in the bucket, but not, some families here, every penny counts. So then I'm going to have to tell them they're going to pay another $200 before they even start to get their land and their house and all that. And again, I know some of you don't think that's a lot of money, but some people do. So I will not be supporting that based on that fact. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing that up. I wasn't going to bother talking because I'm the only one that talks against it. I get tired of it. I just vote against it. So thank you.
And in fairness, Janice, to what Bruce has presented, if the process goes through, you get a refund of the $200, as I understand it, that thing. Just looking at the fee comparison chart there, there's 20 counties, I guess, on that chart. 14 of them don't charge anything.
Yes, that's
14 out of the 26 do. I think 8 of them are in Renfrew County, are in Eastern Ontario, part of the Warden's Caucus. Just for information. So this is an interesting discussion. I don't have any problem of taking the fees and increasing them. I think with costs increase all the time, that's for sure. I just worry about perhaps sending the wrong message that I think we should be very proactive. Economic development or these severances, et cetera, and assessment. I mean, that's the bloodline of taxation, et cetera, within Renfrew County. And we should be encouraging that. And I'm not suggesting that $200 would necessarily discredit that, but it could. Let me just say that it could. So I'm open to suggestions as to how you want to handle this particular situation. Craig.
Chair, if desired, I guess that the motion on the table is to accept it as a whole, the tariff of fees. So like we do with the budget, if you were to remove, not suggesting you want to or not, but if you were suggesting to remove a component of this tariff of fees, it would be a recommendation to approve the tariff of fees bylaw, or recommend to county council to receive this, save and accept, or a fee for general inquiries, I guess. Voting the entire recommendation down would not move this forward at all. So you would have to sever basically that portion therein. So just to clarify that, I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah, and in fact, Craig, I have a line through just above general inquiries, as though maybe we should take that and let the whole of county council decide on that initiative, just as a suggestion. because it affects 11 of the 17 municipalities, really, that don't have planners, I guess. Warden.
Thank you, Chair. I think the recommendation needs to go forward, but perhaps not as a recommendation, but just as the Development and Property Committee forward to County Council. You know, the tariff and fees, and let the entire County Council discuss every one of those issues. It's the fairest way to do it. So we're not recommending as a committee that they be passed, but we're just asking that this information be forwarded to County Council for further discussion.
Oh, we'll need to amend this recommendation that's in front of us, I guess, is the way we have to do it. Dan.
Thank you, Chair. I remember in another committee meeting when the dollars were involved, we had to forward through F&A so they could take a look at it as well. So would we send it through F&A before we get to total council? So a better look?
I would defer to Paul, but I think it's our job as to pass that through as a recommendation on to County Council. There is some funding involved in this, and I did ask Bruce what this means in actual dollars, and it's a rough thing, depends on the number of applications and things that come in front of you. But I think, Bruce, you said somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000 is what could be affected by some of this general inquiry pre-consultation revenues. That's a lot. That's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. And is the aggravation there for the lower tiers and all of those folks, and the message that we're sending worth that $8,000 to $10,000? I'm comfortable either way of passing this, eliminating that and cutting it off. But I think what is it you wanted to suggest there? An amendment to this this recommendation here. Gordon, did you want to speak to that again?
Well, I would like the committee to consider forwarding this entire report to County Council as a whole. Forward the whole thing for discussion. Not recommending anything forward through so that we can have a fulsome discussion at the County Council table. I'm not sure exactly what wording. I would assume that Mr. Morrow or Mr. Kelly can assist with the wording, please.
Who wants to speak to that? Craig or Paul? Either one.
Oh, go Craig.
I was just going to suggest through you, Chair, it was that recommend that the tariff and fees bylaw be forwarded to County Council for their discussion and further approval, or just for discussion. And it still needs to be a recommendation of some sort. I think the word's already recognized that, but just that the Development Property Committee recommend that the tariff of fees bylaw for applications made in respect of planning matters be forwarded to County Council for further discussion.
Okay, so that would be the recommendation, not what is in front of us on this report, correct?
It would be an amendment. Yes, you would be, I guess, a friendly amendment to that recommendation or a new amendment in its entirety.
But we haven't put anything in place at this point in time.
There's been no mover.
Pardon me?
There's been no mover of this recommendation.
Well, there's not. So in essence, we would be recommending, as you say, this is what we want to do. Send it forward to County Council, right? But not recommending the tariff of fees.
That's right. It's not that you are. It's just not that you aren't. You're just not discussing it any further. You're allowing County Council to have a full discussion.
To have a discussion on that.
And then the only other thing I may have for those CAO and clerk was that how we deal with the repeal of the bylaws should it be passed. There may have to be some wording, and I see Paul's hand, Chair.
I think, Chair, at this point, you would just strike that from the resolution and you would deal with that at a later date. You would have the debate. And then once you have that, and once council has the fulsome debate on the matter as a whole, then bring it back to committee for
a bylaw.
Yeah, for a bylaw.
Yep. Okay. So what would the recommendation be? Do you have the wording in that recommendation so I can get a mover and a seconder?
Craig, I think you had the recommendation right, minus the last sentence.
Yeah, so I can repeat that, Chair. That the Development and Property Committee recommend that the new tariff of fees, or actually we could say the proposed tariff of fees bylaw for applications made in respect of planning matters be forwarded to County Council for discussion.
Thank you. You heard the recommendation. I do have a mover and a seconder for that.
Sorry, can I just ask one question?
Yep.
Do we need to add also that it comes back to committee for approval after county council?
Okay, then I need the scribes on that one. Can we not pass a bylaw at that county council, or does it have to go back to committee and then come back to county council? Surely we can pass, well, it's gotta be circulated.
You'd have to have a
right?
notice of motion for
Yes,
passing of that
it has to
bylaw, right? And
circulate,
there is no notice of motion
Understood.
for that.
So it has to come back to committee.
I believe so. I'll defer to Paul and Rose for
Yeah,
actuality. That's what I say.
Yeah, Chair, you're absolutely right. It has no notice of motion and it would have to come back with the resolution for approval and work its way back up through committee.
So that has to come back. Yes. Okay, Bruce.
Chair, and a more question for, I guess, the CAO. Is it possible to, as I believe Chair Sweet said, sever the general inquiry portion and make a recommendation that the bylaw be approved minus the general inquiry provision, and then a separate bylaw, if committee council wants to proceed with a fee for general inquiries, that go through committee, a separate bylaw at a later date, then that wouldn't hold up the rest of the tariff and fee bylaw for another month.
Well, that's a possibility, but if you take a look at the entire application that's in front of us, there's new fee for cancellation, new fee for additional certificate, new fee for amendments, new fee for approval of a local official plan amendment, new fee for site plan. So there's a whole bunch in there, Bruce, that I think the warden would like to see brought for a wholesome discussion at county council. I think I'm not speaking for the warden here, but I think that's what that recommendation that was just read by Craig is all about. So if I could have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, please. It's moved by Janice and seconded by Dan. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed of any? It's carried. Thank you, and thank you, Bruce, for that. There's no reflection on what you're doing here, but I think it has to go right through to county council for endorsement, and then the chips fall where the chips fall. You know, so, but thank you for bringing that forward. I think that's an important initiative. Okay, with that, you want a motion to accept the report?
That's basically.
Yes, motion to accept the report as a whole. Peter, seconded by Kathy, all in favor? Then it is carried. New business. Craig, could you give me an update on the twinning project? Briefly?
Yes, sir. To you. We've been in contact with Renfrew as recently as yesterday, very early yesterday morning. We have supplied Renfrew with a series of vignettes or videos of activities that we enjoy and businesses that we fraternize throughout Renfrew, and they have pieced it together on their end with a videographer. So Mr. Benke has worked with their videographer and video editor in Renfrewshire. It's kind of like a 50-50 montage. As here's what we do, here's what you do. They've added some Scottish music to it and are about to overlay a Scottish poem that I won't ruin the surprise, only because I don't know the name of the poem right now. And that video, that 2 or 3 minute video, will be ready for a show to county council and an official ceremony with the provost, the equivalent to the warden, and our warden will do it virtually in the coming weeks and probably into March once everything gets tidied up with timeline. So we're darn close. Good. To being official partners with the ceremony.
Good. And then we can promote that internally with the County of Renfrew through Alistair Baird and so forth. Did you want me to read the poem to you?
I'm fine with you not doing it, sir.
I won't tease you with that.
Don't ruin the surprise just yet.
So get your kilts out is what you're saying, right? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for under new business? I can see nothing then. There's nothing for closed at this time. Then a motion to adjourn, please. Janice, are you got something, you're adjourning? Yep, okay, seconded by? Okay. Jeb, all in favor? Then we are adjourned. Thank you very much.